Continuing our series on unsound chess, we're going to show you one of the most unsound chess openings that's ever been invented or discovered or whatever it is. Um, and this is in accord with our last note that we were playing lines that limit responses and dictate the kind of game you play, yet still require precision. And this particular game, we're going to play something called the Duras Gambit, which is it's beyond unsound. I mean, the computer just says it's a loss. So um, we're going to show you with an engine what the thing is. I actually opened a new profile and went to, up into the 2100s before having to switch. Just seeing what would happen if I opened F5 against every conceivable opening. Well, it's really easy against things like knight to F3, C4, D4. That's the Dutch defense. But against E4, nobody had enough nerve to play G4. Somebody did play knight to C3 in the first move. F5 becomes a bit of a problem. I played F4 as white and F5 as black on the first move, and successfully got pretty high up rating-wise. So here's F5. Now, as you can see, the computer says after one move, we're down over one and a quarter approximately. So it's a terrible move, and it's a terrible opening. And I strongly suggest that you play it for shock value only. It has the merit of forcing your opponent to get overly excited and think that they're playing a complete Potzers they're going to kill. And in lots of cases, they spend a lot of time figuring out how to exploit the white square weaknesses on black's king side, and going for some sort of fast fool's mate or scholar's mate or something that just isn't there. So you can win a speed game or two using this if you know what you're doing. And of course now queen to h5 check followed by mate is I guess you can actually stave off mate if you play properly, but you're going to lose hideously. So knight to f6 is pretty much required. And now the computer's recommending d5, which is a standard move that I play. Bishop to d3, covering the f-pawn. These are all very standard moves. Once again, maintaining the good advantage. I like to play that move as opposed to e6, which is not as precise according to the computer. Now, as you see, I'm down about one and a quarter again, maybe 1.5, depending on what white does. Now, white plays there, giving me a slight break. It's interesting, the computer now wants to play e5. I've never really analyzed with the computer. But the e5 does kind of force the capture a little better, I think. But frankly, I don't like that pawn there on f5. I want to dissolve that pawn. So now if white wants to maintain some sort of advantage, he pretty much has to capture. And he does. And now, interestingly, the capture back is not recommended. Probably because there's a lot of weird pins and things that can happen on the e-file that create quite a nuisance, especially after knight to f3 to g5. So I capture. Now white should play queen d2 and try to capitalize on that, but he rarely does. And this gives me an opportunity to start to equalize slightly. And of course, castles, castles. And now basically black's pawn down for nothing, and the computer reflects it. However, it's not as bad as it looks. So what we have is an open f-file in exchange for the pawn. And in the old days, that was a pawn that people would remove as part of the handicap situation. So the computer now wants a pin to occur, which white accommodates. And I won't lie to you, this is one of the few games that I'm going to show you where the player wasn't rated 2100 or up. This player was only rated 1981, the white player. So I wanted to show this to you because it's so instructive. It's a good game, and he plays a lot of good moves, up to 1 point, actually. So it suggested I kick, but instead I pin. And one of the reasons I pin is that knight it's such a target, and now just through proper play, white, the bishop, I should say, is a real target just sitting there. And he kicks, and now it wants me to take, which I don't do. He covers. He's playing all very good moves, actually. And kicking, that's now the number 1 move. He plays the number 1 move. Queen to d7 is the number 1 move. And now queen to b3. Queen to b3 looks like a perfectly reasonable move for white. He's also saying rook to e1, and he takes. So he had something in mind, and we'll see what that is in a second. But if he was going to take, why didn't he take when I pushed h6? So, tempos matter. It kind of looks like he's trying to hang the d pawn out to dry here, because as soon as I recapture, it's uncovered. But it's only uncovered in a very false sense, because like if he tried to move queen to b3, I'd probably just move my king and ignore it, because it's indirectly covered by bishop to h2 check with a discovery on the d4 or d5 square there. So I take back with the rook, and now the computer interestingly says b4, so he plays queen to a4, which is quite a strange move. I can't really explain why a player would play that, and as you can see, he was actually up half a pawn at this point. Yeah, I know he wants to get out of the pin, the pin of the bishop on the knight. But why not at least play, another move, like with his queen? I don't know what it's doing there. So maybe he's going to play queen to b5 and fork the b pawn and d pawn. I'm really not sure. But this, and Komodo, the engine looks at this and says, take the knight, which I do. Recapture, and it says take the knight again, which I do. And in this position, white resigned. And it's kind of interesting that he resigned. Well, look, it says, so you should move queen to b5 here. He's only down 2.3. No, I've been down 2.3 in games. Of course, his bishop's attacked. And, he has to worry about what's going to occur with that. And he doesn't have very many good places to put it. So, frankly, if he takes, we have a monster mating attack coming, starting with queen takes rook pawn. So it's very unclear that he can get out of it. So this was an interesting game of one of the most unsound openings ever invented. And just one slip by the opponent allows, as happens in all chess, a disaster to unfold. So the disaster unfolded, and I'm going to show you more Duras gambits in the future, but it's a very bad opening. I really recommend not using it. So, lesson for today.